PNC, America's Black News Channel. Watch us on all major cable providers and major streaming platforms. Finally, news that speaks to us.
Doni Chamberlain joins me now to discuss how she's using journalism to combat right-wing extremism in her California town. Doni, welcome to Amplified. Now, currently in Shasta County, California, where you are, there's a movement to push out local leadership and replace it with more conservative members of the community. Can you talk a little about what they've been able to achieve thus far and how you even got to this point?
Well, first, thank you for having me, Aisha. This is really exciting. So the sort of extreme right takeover started about 2 years ago with the start of the pandemic. And, you know, Shasta County is an extremely conservative county already. You know, like 75% of the county voted for Trump. So we're already conservative, but there was a little splinter group who were ultra conservative, ultra radical. And they were comprised of a group of people I call the Shasta Taliban. I've named them that because it encompasses a bunch of groups. There's the militia, there's the state of Jefferson folks who want to do a 51st state. There are Christian nationalists, there are racists, there are white supremacists. And then there are some who just call themselves soccer moms who want to, quote, take back Shasta County. And early on, it was ostensibly about mask mandates. And, you know, here in California, the governor had mandates that he passed down. And in Shasta County, few people were following them.
So I always like to ask people the question, the mask mandates, I totally get that. That's been, you know, a huge thing all around the country. Who is it that they are taking Shasta County back from? Who do they think is taking over?
That is an excellent question. Well, they think that anybody who doesn't, you know, isn't in lockstep with them, they're, you know, communists, you know, liberal snowflakes, socialists, Marxists. And what's ironic is what they've done is they've targeted the Shasta County Board of Supervisors. And I kind of look at it like a shooting gallery. And one by one, they're going to pick off the rational supervisors and then replace them with their own people. And what's ironic is they call themselves anti-government. I mean, they don't obey the rule of law for, you know, board meetings and mandates, but now they're going to be the ones in charge of the government, which just kind of gobsmacks me. So I look at it kind of like a pirate ship. And so what they've done is there was one supervisor who was on the Board of Supervisors who was extremely right-wing. And then there was another funded by a Connecticut son of a billionaire named Reverge Anselmo. So then there were two. And then they recalled one of the supervisors who was a former police chief, a former cop, a former city council member, and he is a Republican. He's a Reagan Republican. So what's interesting is I'm a Democrat fighting for these rational Republicans who are being taken over by this extreme right group.
Wow. You recently wrote a piece about the Shasta County health officer, Dr. Karen Ramstrom, and the efforts made to push her out. Tell us a little about the Recall Shasta group.
Well, the Recall Shasta group, basically, they blame people like Dr. Karen Ramstrom, who right now, her career is hanging in the balance. There was a meeting where they evaluated her. And this was their far-right supervisors demand to meet with her to evaluate her. And the idea is that they're going to get rid of her. So we don't even know the outcome. It was a closed meeting and they didn't report anything. But they blame her because she was the messenger. And they said because she wasn't standing up to the tyranny of Governor Newsom, that she should be removed. And you know what I've noticed, and everybody has noticed, is that even though early on it was about masks and social distancing and closing businesses, one by one in Shasta County, that's not an issue. So it's really not about that. Now it's about open carry, weapons. Shasta County in California has one of the highest CCW rates in the state already. So it's radical.
Wow. And by CCW, you mean conceal and carry?
Conceal and carry weapons. Right. It's big gun culture here.
clearly a militia brewing. And as I think about those images we just showed at the beginning of this conversation of January 6th, that's exactly the folks who went and tried to, seize the Capitol. You don't hold back in your reporting on your website, which is, by the way, y'all, a newscafe.com. Why did you feel the need to start covering the political beat in your town in the first place?
Well, this wasn't the kind of reporting. I've been a journalist for almost 30 years, and I never did hard news politics. I did more feature stories, but it's sort of like a media desert here. The TV station is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. The newspaper where I used to work has been gutted. And so I found that I was writing about things that the other media wasn't covering. Like, for example, the Proud Boys came to town. And to me, that's a front page story, as if the Ku Klux Klan landed on the courthouse steps, which is where they were. So the more I saw that it wasn't being reported, the more panicked I felt, the more driven I felt to show what was going on. Because so many people, they were like, well, it's so negative. And, can't you write about something positive? I mean, I'm capable of writing about sourdough starter and gardening, but this is a life and death issue. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it's serious stuff.
It is serious stuff, and you just mentioned that Sinclair Media is like the only outlet out there, and it really also goes to show how dire local information access is when you have corporate monopolies that essentially take over media and just push a very singular and narrow point of view, and then you've got propaganda and disinformation engines that are moving. It's like people just believe what's right in front of them, and so, kudos to you for taking it upon yourself to try to create information and awareness and an alternative narrative there. Your writing has been met with criticism and also, threats, which makes me concerned for you for sure and your safety. Talk to us about what was happening at this meeting and the person speaking to you in the clip that we have.
Oh boy.
And when you have people like Doni Chamberlain, who is the only person in this room right now wearing a mask covering her coward face. It's people like you that are making this life difficult for our children, for people that actually want to live in this county and make it better. Look at my eyes, Doni, because I'm speaking to you. If you think we're going to cave, if you think that we're going to give in because you write about us, our families, our children, you're wrong.
Wow. Doni, what was happening?
Yeah, wow. It makes my heart pound just hearing that again. That person, his name is Carlos Zapata. He's one of the leaders of the recall movement here, and he's also the leader of a movement called Red, White, and Blueprints. And they're literally trying to make a blueprint so that other counties across the country could emulate them. And he's angry at me, and he's angry at a news cafe for covering him. And, he went on. He talks about my personal life, about my divorce, about my ex-husband. I mean, he pulled no punches. But in some ways, that just sort of makes me think that I should be covering this more. And I have had death threats, and I'm not the only one here. Some of the supervisors have received death threats. And it's been 2 years, and so far nothing has happened. But, some of the Board of Supervisors meetings, there were speakers who would refer to bullets and nooses. They'd say things like, bullets will run out, but luckily nooses are reusable. They talk about the Nuremberg trials and then how journalists were hanged, and then mention my name in the same sentence, like they want to go back to those times. So it just feels like I'm a pacifist. I'm a peaceful person, but I really feel like I'm at war here. And it's a small group of people who are also fighting this battle against these extremists. But I think the numbers are growing, especially now that Supervisor Leonard Modi was removed. I think people were shocked and didn't believe it could happen. And now hopefully they're waking up.
Wow. First of all, Doni, let me just say to you, we are thinking about you and just hope that you stay safe and take care, because you can't take any of these threats, lightly. The FBI has a long dossier of white supremacists being the greatest threat, really domestic terrorist threat, and have been for years, all through the Obama administration, that this country's ever seen. And not a lot of people are stomping them out. I want to give you the final word here. I have a couple of seconds. What would you implore all of us who are reading your work and who are watching and trying to figure out how to combat this all across the country? What would you implore us to do?
Well, you mentioned about the growing militia. We have a militia here in Shasta County. It's the Cottonwood Militia, and it's just south from here. And according to the leader, Woody Clenendon, who has a Confederate flag hanging outside of his barber shop, there are 1,000 members in the Cottonwood Militia in a community that's 3,200 people in Cottonwood. So I think the thing that people have to do is, if this blueprint comes to your town, to step up and put yourself in positions like on school boards, on water boards, on city councils, because if people are complacent and they don't do that, who does want to do it? You come home from work, the last thing you want to do is go sit through a long board meeting, right? But if we don't, if people like us don't do that, then they're going to fill the void with people like them. And what they want to do is to dismantle, like they're removing the public health officer. The next person who's up to the guillotine chopping block is the county council. So one by one, it looks like they're going to pick them off, and then we'll have a majority. Well, already we have a majority. It's 3-2. So just be involved. I know that sounds trite, but step up and run for office, because if you don't, they will.
Run for something. Doni Chamberlain, thank you so much for joining me tonight on
Thank
Amplified.
you.
We will keep following your work. Stay safe.